Hey ladies, good morning. I hope you're having a great Wednesday. My hair is a little crazy. I am under the weather. I think that it's just allergies, I hope. But I never get sick, and so I'm at a point now where when I do get sick, I feel like a total baby and just want to stay in bed and not do anything. But of course, as moms, we don't get that luxury. So I'm up, I'm dressed, and ready to share with you guys some super easy ways if you want to practice balanced nutrition throughout your pregnancy and maybe not necessarily focus on macronutrient goals or counting calories, that kind of stuff. I want to share with you some easy ways to keep it balanced throughout your pregnancy if that's not what if you don't want to practice if it fits your macros. Nutrition is such a important part of our pregnancy, and so it'll take me about 2 days, about 2 trainings to cover everything. So please make sure that you are checking your email inbox. You should be seeing an email from Sarah Can Training, and so I go into further detail within our emails what I'm covering in the videos, in the live videos. So just in case, so that way you don't miss anything. Hopefully you guys have already downloaded the workbook, but if you haven't, you can go to the file section of our group page and find the workbook there to download and get it printed. Or you can, in your welcome email, there's a link also there. So definitely print out that workbook and keep it handy because it is going to be super important between today and tomorrow when I'm covering the nutrition aspect of this online workshop. Thank you again, ladies, so much for being a part of this. I am thrilled to share with you what I have learned about nutrition over the last 3 years through my certifications, as well as what I'm experiencing as a second-time pregnancy, second-time mom, and really excited to share what I've learned so far. So, as we know, pregnancy is one of the most important times ever for you to dial in your nutrition. It is important to make sure that you are not only eating enough food, but the right foods to support you and your growing baby. So today you're going to learn some simple tips to clean up your current nutrition and hopefully get you on track. So you're going to want to use the log in our workbook to keep track of your recommended nutrient intake for 1 week. And then this also helps too in discovering the holes in your nutrition and what areas you need to focus on improving. So I want to share my top tips for a balanced approach and how to get those important nutrients in. So the first one is protein. Protein, you want to aim for 80 grams or 6 servings throughout the day. And you can break it up into 15-gram servings or 20-gram servings, depending on what your stomach is comfortable with. But protein is the structural material of every cell in our baby's bodies. Pregnancy protein needs to increase by about 25 grams a day above what was needed before you were pregnant. And so in total, so say for example, you were having about 70 grams before, you'll want to bump that up to maybe like 95 or 100. And so keep it simple. Think of, a few glasses of whole milk if you drink whole milk, or maybe adding some extra chicken or steak to your plate, or maybe a little bit more seafood. If you are already an active woman, an active mom who does resistance training or has been doing resistance training, I really suggest that increasing your intake above maybe what your maintenance is. So like mine, for example, before I was pregnant, my protein intake would normally be anywhere between 125 to 130 grams. So now that I'm pregnant, I aim for for about 150 to 160 grams of protein a day. And that is also in an effort to maintain the muscle mass that I have put on since the last time I was pregnant, because in pregnancy we tend to lose that, and we work so hard for it as women. It is really hard for us to put on muscles. So I want to maintain that, so I increase protein pretty significantly throughout my pregnancy. So that's the first one you're going to want to focus on, is making sure that you're getting enough protein. And so you'll see in the workbook little cute little square boxes where you can check off each serving of protein that you get. The next one that you're going to want to focus on is carbohydrates. And so this one isn't just starches. Think about 5 servings of whole grains, 2 to 3 servings of dark leafy greens or green vegetables, and then 2 to 3 servings of fruit. Aim to get your carb sources first from vegetables and fruits, and then filling it in with whole grains and starches like oatmeal and sprouted breads and potatoes, that kind of stuff. The reason that I suggest aiming for those dark leafy green vegetables and fruit first is because it's so important that we hit our micronutrients, and not that whole grains don't have micronutrients, but maybe not as much. So you just want to make sure that you're getting those good micronutrients in, like, folic acid, folate, calcium, that kind of stuff, before you get those starches in. Healthy fats and oils, super important to get in. 3 servings a day, and that equals out to about 3 tablespoons. So think about adding in almonds, avocados, coconut oil. Ghee is one of my favorites. Kerrygold butter, so good. And olive oil. I love healthy fats. So when people say like, oh, I can't hit my fat goal, I'm like, you're crazy. Just add some butter to whatever you're eating and it's awesome. So think about it like that. Keep it simple. It doesn't have to be some complicated dish or whatever. Just maybe add a little bit of ghee to your potatoes or to your toast in the morning, something like that. So the other ones that follow are a little bit, they're still important, but make sure that you're getting adequate dairy in, so 3 to 4 servings. I personally limit my dairy intake just because I just don't feel great when I have a lot of whole milk sources or whole yogurts. But it's really important that you have a good prenatal vitamin that can fill in those gaps that maybe you don't get if you eat dairy-free, because lots of women do that, right? And so those are the ones that you want to focus on: hitting your protein, getting good carbohydrate sources in, healthy fats and oils, and then your dairy. And all of these are listed within the workbook just to help you keep track of your daily eating. So the next thing that I want to share with you guys is the MyFitnessPal app. Hopefully most of you already have this app. If you don't, I really encourage you to please go download the free version and begin tracking your intake now. If you're a pen and paper gal, totally understand. Just use the workbook to track it, no big deal. But here's the thing, I don't want you to obsess about the calories that you might see in MyFitnessPal. When you're setting it up, you're not going to set it up for fat loss or weight loss or whatever, or gain necessarily. You can just set it for maintenance and just let it produce your numbers. That's not the point. The point isn't to look at what the goal says on MyFitnessPal, but the point is just to simply track your intake. It's really important for you to see what you're eating on a daily basis, and maybe for the most part, many women realize that they're severely under eating. And so it can help you see, visually, oh gosh, like I've only had 1 serving of protein today, or I've only had 1 serving of carbs or whatever, but I've had a ton of sugar. Where did that sugar come from? So I think it's really helpful in that sense to be able to see what we're eating. Another great thing about the app is that you can also drill down how certain foods affect you. And this is really important, especially in our first trimester when, we may have eaten throughout the day and then feel kind of sick at night. Maybe instead of dealing with morning sickness, you're dealing with evening sickness or all day sickness. And you can kind of drill down how certain foods affect you differently, and make a different choice the next day and see if that changes it. So that's why I love the app. I don't get paid by them or anything like that. I just really like it. And so, like I said, don't obsess about the calories, but instead focus on hitting adequate servings per day. There are servings within the workbook that show how many servings you should be hitting, and then in what sizes, like half a cup or a full cup, something like that. The other great thing about the app is that you are able to plan ahead of time. I really encourage my nutrition clients to do that when they're first starting out, to go ahead and plan what they're going to eat the next day. So that can be helpful for you as well, not necessarily counting calories, but looking at what you'd like to eat the next day, and then deciding, hey, you know what, I'm not eating enough, getting enough vitamin A tomorrow, or getting enough calcium tomorrow. So how can I make sure that I get that to 100%? So think of it that way. The last thing I wanted to talk about was dealing with morning sickness and food aversions, especially in your first trimester. And for some women, unfortunately, it happens throughout their pregnancy. But make sure that if you're dealing with morning sickness and certain food aversions, just aim to eat what you can when you can. When I was pregnant with Mia, I typically kept saltine crackers and sparkling water like next to the bed almost every night, because throughout the night I would wake up feeling kind of sick and like I was gonna throw up. So just do what you can, eat what you can, and that doesn't make you feel sick. Think about eating foods maybe based on the brat diet, so breads, rice, apple, toast, things that are a little bit more gentle on your tummy and hopefully won't upset them. Okay. Sorry, second to last thing. The last thing I want to talk about is easy ways to get your protein in. What I find for most women, especially pregnant women, is that it is hard for them to hit their protein goal, just because, one, they're not used to eating so much protein, and then two, if you're in your first trimester, sometimes animal protein can make you feel kind of blah and you don't really want to eat it, and that's totally understandable. But here's some other foods that you can add in order to hit your protein goal. So think about sprouted bread, like Ezekiel bread's a great option. Adding nut butters to bread, also a little bit of protein in there. Adding flax or chia seeds to your smoothies. Those are amazing. They thicken up your smoothie, and I don't personally think that they taste great, but they don't really taste like anything. They just taste like seeds. And so it's a great way to add in some protein. Hard-boiled eggs, if you're good with eggs and those don't give you any problems. Yogurt, Greek yogurt, great high protein source if you're good with dairy. Cottage cheese is also a great protein source. I personally don't like the consistency of cottage cheese or the texture of cottage cheese, so I kind of stay away from it, but other people love it. And then one that I just discovered through my pregnancy, kefir, has been a great source of protein, especially for me as somebody who doesn't really care for cottage cheese, and I try to limit my dairy intake. Kefir's been a great option as well. So I hope that these tips on getting balanced nutrition and dialing in your nutrition through your pregnancy have been helpful. Tomorrow we dive into the good stuff. We're going to dive into if it fits your macros and pregnancy, and how to determine what your macros should be throughout your pregnancy and postpartum and nursing. So it is going to be a very detailed training, so keep an eye out on your email inbox, because I will cover a lot of it via email as